If you look at all the frameworks that exist, and yes, the next one is going to be so much better than the last one, but your customers really don't care.
What do you think are the most common mistakes that juniors or senior engineers make when they are new to a team?
Hey, welcome to developersindev.com, a community for young developers who wants to grow their tech career. I'm Jorge Ferreiro, software engineer and host of Developers in Dev. Today, I'm very excited to interview Renaud. Renaud is from France, and he co-founded Eventbrite 14 years ago with Julia Hart as well as with Kevin Hart. Renaud has a lot of different experiences and lessons learned, as well as he is also an investor. Cling, cling, cling. This interview is called In Depth because we're gonna dive in so much into Renaud's background. We will cover from tips from junior engineers, lessons learned from his career. If you want to have access to more interviews like this one, just go to developersindev.com, sign up, and you will have a lot of access to free resources and free interviews with other leaders. That's all. Let's get started.
Can you please introduce yourself to the people, like who you are, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from France. I grew up in France, and then I went to study in the US. So I went to Cornell University to do a Master of Civil Engineering. That was 25 years ago. Lived in Madrid for a little while, then went back to the US, to San Francisco, where I worked as a civil engineer. And then I switched careers in 2000 to be a software developer, and a web developer in particular, which is different, I think. And then founded Eventbrite with Kevin and Julia in 2000, and at the end of 2005 is when we met.
You mentioned before that you did a master in US. So what did you learn from those years?
Masters are quite interesting because you get with people who have been doing the specialty that you're in for a long time in the US versus France, where we're a lot more pluridisciplinary until the last year of studies. So I ended up with, first of all, I didn't speak English very well, so I had a couple months of adjusting to understanding what the professors were saying. It was pretty hard, I'd say, harder than I thought. Then there was a big ramp up on skills because I had not studied civil engineering at all when I got there. So I had to learn a lot during that 1 year that I did. But the universities in the US are really well equipped to help you succeed. They have a lot of diverse people in different disciplines. The libraries are great, and much more, I would say, aspiring or inspiring than French universities in a way.
Mm-hmm. And also more practical, right?
Very practical, especially at the master's level. Like you learn the skill that you're going to be applying on your first job, and that's really the thing I was looking for. So I was a little tired of being thrown at so many disciplines and thinking abstractly and very analytically in France. And here it was very much applied.
What motivated the transition into programming?
Like programming, I just didn't like the old world of programming where you create something, you put it on a CD, and then every 6 months you send a new CD and people install your software. That was not appealing to me. But when the web started growing really fast, I got excited about building things on it because I think I'm a builder at heart, someone who likes to create things for others. And with the internet, you could just have very simple forms, simple HTML, CSS, then push that to an FTP site, and hop, you had a new website that anybody could access. And that power was quite appealing and thrilling in a way. So I started creating some small websites. My father was a nature photographer, so I created an index of all the nature photographers in the world where they could upload their photos and be listed. Had quite a lot of traffic. It was the beginning of Google AdSense, so I put AdSense on there and was making a royal like $100 a month, I think, with it. Wow. So I could see the potential. I was doing that on the side, so it was just for fun.
So when was that?
That was like 97, I think, when I created that.
Oh, wow.
And then I saw the bubble like grow and grow and grow and grow, and all these companies raising hundreds of millions of dollars, going IPO very quickly, creating products that everybody was starting to know, like Amazon was already a big name in book selling, not in selling everything, but books. And I just wanted to be part of that. So I found a job as a junior software developer at a startup that was doing photo sharing, so combining my photography interest with my programming interests, and left the environmental firm I was working for to have a new career.
So once you decided, I want to dive deep on programming, how did you start learning and dive deep on the technical stuff?
So there was nothing in schools, there was really little online. It was mostly books at the time. People were publishing books and I was buying them and reading them because that was the only way to learn, really. So those big 1,000-page books that list all the different functions and calls you can make. They were a great training ground, and also I did some projects for my civil engineering company. So we had an accounting software, and there was no web interface, and it was missing a lot of functionality that I wanted to have as someone who was managing projects inside the company. So I started exploring the accounting database and creating views on top of the accounting database. That taught me a lot about how to model data and how to aggregate things so that you can provide a good interface for your users. Because I was the user, so I was building for myself in the end. And when I left, everybody was using my tool.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So now let's talk more about your role at Eventbrite. So can you describe?
Depends on the year. I mean, I was the first developer, the only developer when we started. Did that for 2-3 years, I would say, being very hands-on and controlling pretty much everything that was written. To starting being the leader of a small team. So once we started hiring, we had QA, our first engineers, started building a team. There it's more about like giving my view of things and guiding the group to understand that we're living in a very fast-paced culture, and that we needed to iterate very quickly to be able to get to the market size that we wanted. And after that, it's more, I've applied my skills to specific projects over the years. So I really believed we should be a global company. Our framework did not support internationalization, so I spent a lot of time making our platform internationalizable.
Oh.
And that's a big project. Like, we had already a lot of pages. There was no extracted strings, for example. So they were not marked as English strings. We had to create like parsers and things like that to go through our entire code base and find all the strings that needed to be marked. We had to build all the currency support, all the date support, all the locale support. We had to come up with a different TLD scheme. We had to create taxes in the system because we didn't have tax at all. So there were a lot of things like that took several years, I would say, to finish. And then now I'm always looking at what's more impactful for the company to spend my time on. And as we've grown the team quite a bit, I think documentation is really important. Our external developer experience is not where it should be, so that's what I've been working on in the last few months.
I will ask you more later about that. Yeah, but it's so cool that since you're from Europe, you say, hey, we have to internationalize this, and the experience changed. So I love that you brought that topic to the company.
It's just a big investment for a small company. Absolutely. Because we had to spend at least a few engineers' time to work on this. So we had to be sure that, first of all, we wanted to be international and not focus on the US market. And then second of all, that we had the dedicated isolation to work on just this project for a while.
If I tell you, can you define like in one sentence what's the role of a CTO?
I think every company is different. For us, it was, I think, making the connection between the business, the product, and the technology that we use. Mm-hmm. So in the end, we're at the service of the customers. And the technology choices are secondary but important, especially for our space where we sell a lot of tickets very quickly. So we had to architect things the right way, but always thinking about why we're doing this. We're doing this because customers want tickets, they want it for specific events, they're going to sell out very quickly, we need to be able to support that. So that's, I think, what the role of the CTO is to make sure we invest on the technology side in the right areas, and that we make everybody in the company, especially engineering, as efficient as possible, while keeping in mind that we're still business and need to make money someday. And that the product is how we make money, by creating a solution that people need and want to use day in and day out. So that's what I think the CTO should be doing. In comparison to a VP of engineering, which may be more about building the team, building the culture, the hiring process, the training, making sure that we have the right reporting structure. That's how we divided the disciplines, I would say.
It's awesome that you mentioned the why, because most of the time it's like, you're not here for solving cool technical problems, which can be the case, but also it's like, how can we please our customers? And especially when you're a smaller startup, that you want to make sure that you deliver and you please our customers. I think that's an amazing mindset for keep working and be a developer.
I mean, there's new technology every day. Like, if you look at all the frameworks that exist, and yes, the next one is going to be so much better than the last one, but your customers really don't care. They need something they can use every day, that's reliable, that doesn't have bugs, that is appealing to use and to look at. But that's all that matters to them. Whether you use the MongoDB, MySQL, or a flat file, they could care less. So keep that in mind when you're debating whether something should be upgraded or we should switch to an entire different system that's going to require everything to be rewritten in the next year. Like, those are very big investments, and many companies have actually failed to complete these projects and have failed the company. My first company was like that, actually. Okay. We were going through a Java rewrite of the entire stack, integrating with, I think it was IBM WorldSphere or something, some e-commerce high-end package, and we just never finished the project because we ran out of money. We were paying these external consultants thousands of dollars to do the conversion, and it's just never completed. So it was a big waste of money, I would say, and there's a lot of waste of money in software.
Absolutely. So in all those years, which one is your favorite project that you have been working on at Eventbrite, and why is that?
I think, the early days are very exciting because you're defining a category by with something that seems so simple. Like, if you looked at the site at the time, it was one form to create the event, one form to create tickets, and basically that was it. There was no discounts and all the other things we added in after that. So trying to understand what an industry needs was a big challenge for us, because we didn't come from the event industry. We came from the technology background space where we were just interested in solving problems for people that potentially could be big opportunities financially, but also on the impact on the world side. So bringing people together is something that we're very proud that we're helping. In the process, we're also helping a lot of organizers who were not organizers before. They were not even creators. They were people with jobs and passions that didn't really mix, and having a platform like Eventbrite, I think, allowed us to make a living out of their passions, which is very compelling as a reason for doing what we do every day. But the early days were very interesting because we were
from scratch building something new.
Exactly.
That's so exciting.
We couldn't really copy someone else because there was no one else doing the same thing. So we were kind of the trailblazers, and the empty space you get when you're trying to define what the market needs is quite exciting.
Like, in particular, I think Eventbrite has a very special culture and has won like many prizes about the best workplace, the best space to work and so on. But how do you define the engineering culture?
You define the engineering culture. We don't define the engineering culture. I think the people who are part of this company are making the culture change all the time. We can infuse some of our values, and I think we're very entrepreneurial, scrappy, even from the beginning. Like when it was just Kevin, Juliana, and me, that's how we function. Like we try to do the most with the least amount of resources we could afford to spend on specific things, and we've kept those values is very important. Like, can we do the same thing with just 2 engineers instead of 5? Can we go faster here by investing a little bit instead of the 10 million you want to spend? Like, this is really important to have at heart for a company, I think, to model their success based on what made them successful early on and keep that. So I'm sure Julia can talk about culture a lot better than I can, but I think it's really up to the engineers themselves to make the culture they want, to be integrated with the company values that we have. I think we're very open, like you speak your mind in general at Eventbrite in engineering, especially, and a lot of people do. Be transparent about why we're doing certain things, and we try to have a healthy way of making people accountable also for the things they should be producing, which is not always easy, but something that's important. Like, we're not here to just play. We're here to build business together, and I think understanding what your role is inside the organization to make that happen, why, again, you're working on certain things, what does it unlock, why is it important, is a responsibility we have to communicate that properly so that everybody inside the organization understands how they're fitting.
Yeah, it's great because I remember talking with Tom, which is one of the designers in the company, and he mentioned like even the values can change or be modified or be improved. The company mission doesn't change in all these years, and that's what makes people stick to the company, because we know where we're going and why are we here to bring people together on life experiences. So I think that's...
And the values have changed many times. We've had different
steps,
different way of expressing it.
Okay.
We had different people think about the terms to associate with what we feel, which is really what culture is about. How do you describe the culture? It's by using words. And you find the right words, and they evolve over time. Like when we were one office company with 20 people, it's a very different culture than when we're 14 offices across the world where people are not even on the same time zone and have different languages. You can't have the same cultures. It has to be adapted. Also, the mission stays the same, but the way we... And also we, like any organization, we had to evolve. So.
Yeah, glad that you mentioned about the growing of the company, because right now it's more than 1,000 employees, and from the IPO, their plans to grow a lot. So what do you think was key in order to grow all the engineering team from just you as like the first programmer to what we are right now? What in all those years, what was key to keep growing?
I think keeping the mission highly visible and at the forefront of finding people who have some connection with the mission is important. Like if you don't believe in the product, it's really hard to build a cohesion of any group of people. So I think the key was also to hire the right people at the right times. We had no tests, for example, at the beginning. We didn't have tests for 3-4 years. So we had to hire specific people who had done that before, who saw the importance of tests to convince us that tests are important for the future. So it's finding the key areas where you're lacking over time and strengthen these parts one by one so that you can, and also you don't have all the experience when you start. I only had my limited 4 or 5 years experience with my previous company to inform what Eventbrite should become. Bringing these people with a lot of experience like Pat, who had worked at Ticketmaster, who worked on many projects that were very complicated. Some of them succeeded, others did not. So bringing that type of talent at the right time in the evolution of the company allowed us to, I think, form the right teams at the right time with the right structure, expand and specialize a lot of the functions, and then build turn that into products that are actually valuable and a clear differentiator with the competition.
Yeah, that's very smart to identify, hey, we're missing these and we're gonna hire the right people to do the job. I think that's
sometimes you don't know what you're missing until you start talking to these people and say, oh yeah, I will help you do that because I think it's really important.
Like you mentioned before, when you go first to US, well, sometimes all the you didn't speak well, like the language and so on. Where, like in all those years, were any like fun situation where the cultural difference take into place?
Yeah, I think one big difference, and I got bitten several times in my first job, is the perception of sarcasm.
Okay.
We're very sarcastic in Europe, and that fell flat many times with my coworkers in the US. So that's funny because the sense of humor is different, and I think subtlety in Europe of humor is sometimes lost. I don't want to generalize, there's very sarcastic people in New York, but maybe less in other parts of the country. So that was something that really shocked me because I got into trouble several times.
Oh wow.
People took it at the face value when really it was just sarcasm and I meant the opposite of what I was saying. A European would have understood.
So what did you learn to overcome that? Just not being sarcastic, or just what did you learn from remote?
Or don't be too offensive through sarcasm, because they might take it as at face value instead of seeing the humor in the comments.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, by a bi-directional thing, it says you to make sure that, okay, I understand their culture, but also them to make sure, okay, this is a totally new person.
I think if you go to a different country, you need to adapt to their culture. So if sarcasm isn't a thing, then don't do it.
And what if you don't go to that country, but you work remotely?
Remotely is different. Be your own, and yeah, maybe you'll get into trouble.
Because you're on your own.
At least understand some of the differences, so you don't on purpose do it. If you know, then you can avoid it. Okay. If you don't know, then you might offend someone by accident, which is okay as well. But yeah, be conscious of the differences, because there are significant differences with all the people who work. Yeah. Try to be neutral if possible.
Yeah, that's a good insight. And to finish this blog about the engineering culture, you've been working like remote for quite a few years already. And I think that's interesting because the talent right now is distributed. So what lessons learned have you, I don't know, any insight that you have learned like working remotely that has worked for you and maybe can work for other people too?
I think some people can work remotely and others can't.
Okay.
So know whether you're in one category or the other. I need a lot of quiet time to be effective at anything.
Yeah.
I need dedicated, no interruption time. Otherwise, I just can't context switch fast and I don't like it. So working remotely and in different time zone gave me a lot of these times where I could really focus on being creative. Because I think programming is a lot more creative than people think. And to be creative, you can be in the flow, like artists say, to be a 10 times engineer. And some people really thrive being isolated like that. We have a few people like that. Chideki is our only distinguished engineer, and he works remotely.
Wow.
Because he can really focus on work on the problem set that he has and fix very complex problems. But to do that, you have to be self-motivated. You have to understand when your rhythm, when you like to get up, working from home gives you more freedom. But if you don't know how to use your time, then it's probably not a great use of your talents.
I have a feeling that you work 24 hours.
Sometimes that don't work because I can't think that big or I have too many interruptions that day as well. So knowing when is a good time for you to work, maybe you work in 2 hour spurts, or maybe it's 6 hours uninterrupted.
Yeah, and also as you mentioned before, it's not for everybody, and especially I think for junior people can be very tough because you need the interaction with other people and the mentors.
Also the rigor of the office, like you're here to work. This is not the place to do your shopping and clean the dishes and take out the dog and all the things you do when you're at home. I think that's the danger of working from home. Is
to know separate between personal life and work and to mix them up.
Exactly. To mix them too much and you end up not being effective or as effective as you would be in the office.
And also it's hard to change between contexts as well.
Yeah, and some people need the extra added pressure from having peers around to be productive.
It's like poking you.
No, but you see others working hard and you want to do the same.
Oh yeah, that's also inspiring. What do you think is key in order to a more technical team?
I think curiosity, first of all. Like when you arrive and it's an entirely new code base, it takes a while for sure. So be curious about how things are organized. There's a lot of documentation here, so there's no real excuse for not reading it, especially if you don't know anything about the systems. You'll learn things, might be slightly overwhelming at first, but at least get the high-level view of how the system interact with each other. So that you're not completely lost when there's a discussion about this, that, or some other parts. Then start small, like take one change on the web page or the mobile app and make that change, take bugs. There's lots of bugs in the system. Take those and try to fix them. This way that will show you the connection between all the parts, the different styles of code that exists. And always ask questions when you don't know. Like you can. I'm a bad example because I usually try to find a solution for too long before I ask someone else. But I think senior engineers are here to help you in your career and to get started. So having a buddy, I think, is important. Someone who's directly responsible for making you better. Someone you can trust that they will answer your questions. It's not that people don't want to answer questions, it's just the format that they do it in. If you just ask a random question on Slack, you're relying on the goodwill of someone to give you 5 minutes to write a reply. And sometimes people don't volunteer that because they think someone else will cover it. When you ask your buddy or your mentor, then it's his or her responsibility to give you an answer, even if they don't know. So use that effectively, but I'll try to apply the skills that you learn in the documentation and start small and then go into bigger projects over time. Yeah, I learned a lot from the senior people I worked with at my first company. I didn't really know anything. I had to build software for millions of people. And they were very smart people in the group. I asked questions all the time. I probably was the annoying child that wants to know the answers.
When you have such a huge amount of information, how can you focus and get that information and be applicable to what you're doing? It's like you start reading all the thing, or do you use any technique?
No, I would get a good understanding of where the information is. I don't think I would read the entire docs.eddhome.com. That's our documentation portal from one end to the other. I understand what the big categories are, so that when you have a question, you know exactly where to go. That's how books work also. You flip through the book to see what the organization is. Then when you need to know how to clear the screen, you just look for clear and then you find the function that you need. So treat it like a book, but you have to understand what's in it, when it's useful for you, when to pull it up, when to tell people that something is missing in the book. I think it's our collective responsibility to make documentation be comprehensive enough that anyone can find the answer without asking someone else. And that relies on everybody finding the holes, on new versions being added so that you can see the path we took to get from one place to the other, and write for people who don't know anything about the topic.
And that's a good tip. A good tip for writing the section.
So you write a lot for engineers and you expect them to have a certain level of understanding of all the different components. But in reality, a new engineer will not know anything about our systems, and they shouldn't. So how do you explain that to someone that comes from the outside, really?
Yeah, I don't know what you think, but most of the time it's not about how, like, a specific implementation of the system. It's more about the general idea and providing enough context so people can be on the same page. Yeah. It's most of the time about the context, like why are we doing this and what are the different components rather than a specific implementation, especially when you start. But I love what you said about in order to jump into a code base, like start small, doing a specific change that can be like add a metric or add a log or whatever you want. And the other was you mentioned, which is do a small back fixes. And that's something that Marcos, a senior engineer, he told me in the previous interview, like that rule of literally cleaning the floor.
Yeah.
Which is, there is a mess, but you can put a lot of it.
But it shows you what the mess is also. It's not easy to know what's good code and bad code, or code we want to retire and code that we want to be producing more of. So being confronted directly to why is it bad is a good way to learn.
What do you think are the most common mistakes that juniors or senior engineers make when they are new to a team? Like it's something that you have observed?
I think you still need to build relationship with your coworkers, treating it like a job and not really wanting to interact and socialize with others. I think it's too bad. You're going to spend a lot of time working with these people. So go get a beer and get acquainted, ask about their family. I don't know. We're people after all, not just machines. Maybe we'll be replaced by machines, but that's another question. And understand the decision-making process that leads to you working on something. I think it's important to understand why. Yeah.
What is this shit?
Why am I doing this? Why am I here? What am I contributing? What are the goals? And do challenge your management when you see that things are not either explained properly or measured properly. Like it's our collective responsibility to create the best product for our clients. So if you feel there's not enough validation of the thing we want to be doing, do the validation first, or propose that to the PM that you're working with that, yeah, we should probably test this and that before we go into coding, because we can spend a lot of time coding the wrong thing. And that's a big waste of time and money for everyone. I mean, there's few people here who have worked on big projects at other companies that have been killed. There's nothing less discouraging than having done that. You work for 2 years and your thing just gets deleted in one day and nobody's used it. That's definitely not how we want you to spend your time.
Yeah, I love because from your answer I get two things. Like first, it's really important to be vocal in the sense that say what you think and your person like, hey,
we're very open to feedback in general. I think that's part of our culture. Later.
Like be vocal, but also make sure that you understand the context and you don't jump and say, oh, you did this decision, like, are you guys crazy? Like, don't judge, just understand why this was made.
Exactly.
And maybe it's because there was like a time constraint or something, but yeah, that's good.
And understand the trade-offs. If you propose something, you have to have a clear picture of the pros and cons, the time it's going to take, the impact on the organization. Once you have done the work of explaining it, similar with when we switched to React. So one engineer decided that he wanted to push that because he saw that is how we should be building applications in the future. And he wrote a very lengthy description of why it's good, what it's going to take, where we are, why is our system bad. So you have to validate your hypothesis also on the tech side. what you feel is the right path is actually doable and will bring the benefits that you expect. And I think engineers don't do that enough. Even thinking about one project that you are going to be working on, we tend to want to start coding first.
So React is cool with do that instead of just trying to convincing people why we should.
But even when you build a new create form, like spend the time thinking about why am we doing this? How do I measure success? How am I going to build it? What are the different APIs I need? What is the data model? All of these things should be done before you start coding. And I think we tend to do the other way. And I think that's how you go from junior engineer to principal. Like principal will really define everything ahead of time, think about all the edge cases by themselves and without having to ask anyone. So those are the skills that are really important to be able to drive projects.
You mentioned this success, and let's talk about these for like the last percent of you. Like for all those years working with engineers, what do you think are the values that make them successful inside the company? And this is relatively the fact, me as a junior engineer or other junior engineers, what are the values they have to work on in order to be successful?
I think we provide support for engineers, but the ones who really thrive are the ones who are passionate about what the topic they're working on. And that's probably the most important thing. Even, I would say, beyond the mission of Eventbrite, being passionate about the day in, day out work that you're doing. The problem that you're solving is probably the most important thing for us to ensure so that you have your base level happiness covered. Because if you're working on something you hate every day, you might love the mission of bringing everybody together through life experiences, but you're going to hate your job. So that's the one thing we need to do, and the one thing you need to do is to know what you really like doing.
Find your real motivation.
Yeah, or maybe you want to experience different technologies and go learn different stacks and work in different teams, and that's fine too. So adapting your needs to the organization with always the values that I would say, cherish is ownership, self-motivation. It's really hard to motivate people who don't want to work, and they don't really want to do that. So if you're not self-motivated about what you're doing, then it's not the best position, I think, for anyone.
For you and for the rest of the people that work with you. So it's like for you because you're not happy, for the rest of the people because of the fact these guys are good.
And we want people who feel strongly we should make our world better. Not just the world, but our world, like the Eventbrite world. We should make a better product that functions better, scales better, is easier to use for everyone internally. PMs, engineers, everybody it should become easier and easier over time. It takes a lot of effort from a lot of people to make that happen. And I think the values that are important are this collective sense of really working very closely together to accomplish something that's better than what we had yesterday.
Is there any like the final kind of thing that you want to tell people? Like any final thought?
I would say that in general, don't wait for permission.
Okay.
We're the sum of the individuals. That's what a company is. Everybody has good ideas that are valid and should be pursued. So if you feel strongly something is important for the company, for yourself, for your team, go and make it happen. But that's why we have the make it happen spirit of work, because that's really what we want people to feel when they work at Eventbrite, is that feeling that whatever is important to them can be done if they push hard enough, convince the right people, build the case for doing it, and do it, take ownership of it. I think we have a lot of really original ideas like yours, where you just do it. you didn't ask anyone if you could do the interviews. You chose doing it, and you're going to publish them, and you're going to find a way to make it useful for other people. That's really what our culture is all about. And I hope you get the Make It Happen spirit award for doing this.
Sure, I will work on that. So thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Yay! That was the end of the interview with Renaud. I hope you found it useful. It was the first interview that I ever recorded, and for me it was so special as well as so intimidating. But I really enjoy it. If you want this type of interviews, please consider donating, link below. That will help us a lot to keep producing more content for you. Also, you can share this with your friends. There are 3 links below, so they can be part of this community as well as learn from Renaud and from other leaders. That's pretty much all, but one more thing. In 2 weeks, we are gonna release the next interview, which is gonna be with a senior engineer at Microsoft. Who do you think is gonna be? And by the way, just let us know what other people we should interview next. That's all. See you very soon.